Before we begin, remember this. A house cannot listen unless something inside it is listening through you. When Emma and Caleb stepped across the threshold of Blackthorn Estate, they thought they were starting a new life, but the house heard their first doubt. It savored their first argument. It fed on every fear they tried to hide, even from each other. And by the time they realized, the walls weren't just listening, they were learning. And once a house learns you, there is no leaving.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. This house has been waiting longer than you've been alive. The road to Blackthorn Estate narrowed the farther Emma and Caleb drove, until the forest pressed in on both sides like a pair of closing hands. Pines leaned toward the windshield, their trunks warped from decades of wind, their branches scraping softly against each other as if sharing secrets the couple wasn't meant to hear. Rain misted lightly, not enough to soak the ground, but enough to turn every shadow into something breathing. Caleb tried to lighten the mood. Almost there. Just a fixer-upper, right? Emma gave a thin smile, but her hands stayed tight on her knees. She kept staring out the window, watching the trees sway in unison, as though acknowledging her arrival. No matter how many times she blinked, the same thought surfaced. Something here already knows us. A mile later, the forest ended abruptly. A clearing opened, pale and unnatural, like a wound carved out of the earth. And in the center of that clearing stood Blackthorn Estate, a massive Gothic relic of stone and rotting wood, its towers bent at strange angles, its windows dark and glassless. The house didn't look abandoned. It looked expectant. Emma swallowed. Caleb, no one lives miles from here. Why would a house this big even exist out here? Caleb shrugged, trying to appear unfazed. Old money? Someone eccentric? People build weird stuff in the middle of nowhere. But his voice wavered slightly. They parked. The engine ticking softly was the only familiar sound left in the world. As soon as Emma stepped out, a heavy stillness settled around her shoulders. Not silence, stillness, the kind that absorbs noise instead of reflecting it. She scanned the expansive field around them. No birds, no insects, no breeze. The whole clearing felt like a held breath. And the house felt like the thing holding it. They approached the front doors, massive oak slabs reinforced with rusted iron bands. Emma reached for the handle, but hesitated. It was warm, unnaturally warm, as if someone had been holding it right before she touched it. Caleb tugged it open. See? Not so bad. But the moment the door creaked inward, a dense pressure spilled out like exhaled air. Emma felt it sweep over her skin in a slow, deliberate slide. Goosebumps rose instantly. The foyer was darker than it should have been. Dust hung in the air like suspended ash. Their footsteps echoed softly on the warped floorboards. The sound muted, swallowed. It's bigger than the listing photos, Caleb whispered. Emma nodded, but didn't step farther. Something unseen brushed past her ankles, light as silk, cold as stone. She turned sharply. Did you feel that? Caleb head-shaked, probably a draft. But Emma had lived long enough to know the difference between a draft and something intentionally touching you. She lifted her eyes to the staircase curling up toward the second floor. For a moment, just a flicker, she thought she saw a figure at the top, tall, unmoving, watching. But when she blinked, nothing remained except the dark outline of a hallway. She stepped back. Someone died here. Caleb lifted an eyebrow. "You don't know that." "I can feel it." He exhaled, trying to keep the peace on their first day. "Em, we talked about this. You pick up on things. Houses settle, wood expand, shadows move around. That doesn't mean something's waiting," she murmured. Her voice sounded too loud in the silence. They explored the first floor slowly, room by room. The library smelled of old leather and mildew, its shelves filled with books that seemed untouched by time. The parlor still held a cracked mirror, one that reflected the room perfectly, except for a faint blur where Emma was standing. She stepped aside. The blur remained exactly where she had been. "Caleb," she whispered. He was in the next room and didn't hear. Emma stared at the mirror until her own reflection sharpened again. Her pulse slowed. A moment of relief. A moment where she convinced herself she had imagined it. But then a soft tapping came from behind the walls. Not random, not rodent-like, rhythmic, almost like replying. She backed away slowly, a cold ribbon of dread tightening around her spine. They regrouped in the foyer. Caleb tried again to joke, but his smile cracked at the edges. "You okay?" Emma nodded, though the pressure inside her chest hadn't lifted. "It's just, everything feels wrong. New surroundings, big old house, it's normal." No, she thought. No, the house was not normal. She could feel it watching, not with eyes, but with presence, like standing before a deep cavern and sensing movement in the dark, too far to see, but too close to ignore. The walls seemed to press in fractionally, listening, measuring her breathing, and that phrase repeated quietly in her mind, uninvited, unshakable. It was waiting. It had always been waiting. And now, it wasn't waiting alone. "Let's at least check upstairs," Caleb said. Emma didn't want to, but the house seemed to lean forward, as if encouraging her, as if eager. The held breath around them deepened. They ascended the first step, and the floorboards whispered beneath their weight. Not a creak, a whisper, as though the house finally recognized them and welcomed them inside.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Don't whisper here. It hears everything. Night settled over Blackthorn Estate with an unnatural heaviness, the kind that didn't rise or fall, but simply was, as if it had been waiting all day for the privilege of smothering the house again. Emma and Caleb lay in the bedroom they'd chosen on the second floor, but neither of them had come close to sleep. Rain tapped on the warped window panes. The wind crept along the gutters, but beneath those familiar sounds was something else. Something soft, something deliberate. A murmur. Emma turned toward Caleb in the dimness. "Did you say something?" Caleb shook his head. "No. Thought you did." Silence again. Then another whisper. This time both of them heard it. Faint, almost breathless, a syllable sliding through the room like a shiver. Emma sat up. "Caleb, that didn't come from either of us." Caleb rubbed his face, tired but alert now. "Probably the vents. Old place like this, sound travels weird." But he didn't sound sure. And Emma knew he wasn't. She could hear the tension in the way he held his breath. The whisper came again, softer, closer. A voice trying to mimic them. Caleb grabbed a flashlight and swung his legs out of bed. "I'm going to check the hallway." Emma followed him to the bedroom door even though every part of her wanted to stay behind, away from the whispering, away from the dark. The hallway outside was long and crooked, a spine of warped floorboards and shadows. The flashlight beam moved slowly across peeling wallpaper, dust, and door frames, slightly misaligned with their hinges. Caleb leaned toward a vent on the wall. "Hear that?" Emma nodded. A faint echo drifted up through the slats, a fragmented whisper, but definitely a whisper. And it sounded like her. The tone, the cadence, the breathiness, a perfect imitation of her voice. She stepped back instinctively. "Caleb, that's..." But the whisper cut her off. "Don't tell him. Don't tell him about the lake." Emma froze. Her throat tightened. The memory slammed into her so hard she almost staggered. 8 years old, water closing over her head, cold mud pulling her down, someone screaming on the shore. She had never told Caleb about that lake. Not a word. Not even in passing. Caleb frowned. "What lake? Emma." "Caleb, I didn't say that." "Yes, you..." "I said nothing." Her voice cracked, sharp with panic she couldn't hide. The whisper in the vent distorted this time, with her voice and something deeper beneath it, like multiple versions of her were speaking at once. "You didn't tell him because you're still afraid." Emma covered her mouth. The memory wasn't just private, it was buried. She hadn't thought about that lake in over a decade. And the house was repeating it, like it had been waiting to use it. Caleb backed away now, the flashlight trembling in his hand. We should check the basement. Maybe the ventilation system is messed up." Emma shook her head violently. "No. The basement? No. Absolutely not." Shadow gathered thickly at the bottom of the hallway, making the staircase look deeper than it before, like it led somewhere far below the house instead of just one floor. Somewhere colder. Somewhere listening. They returned to the bedroom with the door left slightly ajar, a small comfort, though neither could explain why. The house breathed around them, not with lungs, but with space, with the slow shifting breaths of settling timber, stretching pipes, and unseen things that moved just behind the walls. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed. "It has to be echoing our voices from earlier. We talked about a lake, didn't we?" Emma shook her head slowly. "Never." Her voice trembled, not because she was afraid of the memory, but because something else was now speaking for her. The whisper came again, drifting through the vent like a gentle breeze. "Nothing stays quiet here." Emma stiffened. Then the whisper repeated the sentence exactly the same, but this time in Caleb's voice. "Nothing stays quiet here." Caleb stood up abruptly, flashlight snapping toward the vent. "That's enough. This house has some kind of audio issue, or..." But before he could finish, all the vents in the bedroom exhaled at once, a chorus of overlapping whispers. Emma, Caleb, Emma again, and something else beneath them both. Something that didn't belong to either of them. A whisper layered with hunger. "Nothing stays yours." Emma felt her heartbeat stumble. That phrase, that wrong, deliberate phrase, lodged itself somewhere deep in her chest. Nothing stays yours. Not your voice. Not your memories. Not even your fear. Hours passed, though outside the night stayed the same. They tried to sleep, but the whispers didn't stop. They only grew more cunning, mimicking their tones, their breaths, their pauses, testing which phrases got reactions, testing what made Emma sit up fast, testing what made Caleb clench his jaw, testing them. Emma lay with her back to the wall when she felt it again. The faintest vibration, like someone on the other side pressing their lips against the plaster. She held her breath. Then, in a voice that was perfectly her own, the wall whispered, "I know more." Emma jolted upright, and the chapter closed with that same repeating dread in her mind. Nothing stays quiet here. Nothing stays yours.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. The estate wants your secrets, not your furniture. Morning came slowly to Blackthorn Estate, as though the sun itself hesitated to cross its threshold. Gray light seeped into the bedroom in thin, reluctant streaks. Emma hadn't slept. Caleb had, sort of. But even in sleep, the house had refused to stay quiet. Emma listened to Caleb now, his breaths uneven, his brow furrowed with a tension he didn't usually carry. She sat up and leaned closer. He murmured something. Soft. Unclear. Then again, clearer this time. Don't leave. Don't leave like she did. Emma felt her stomach knot. She had never heard him say that before. Not in any argument, not in any moment of vulnerability. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Caleb," she whispered gently. "Caleb, wake up." But before he stirred, he said something else, this time in a shaking voice, thick with shame. "I couldn't follow her. I couldn't. I locked the door." Emma froze. What door? What moment was he reliving? Caleb never spoke this way, not even when he was drunk or overwhelmed or grieving. And the house seemed to breathe with satisfaction, as if savoring the revelation. Caleb blinked awake, confused. "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" Emma hesitated. "You were talking in your sleep." He stiffened instantly. "What did I say?" Emma considered lying to protect him, protect them both, but the house had already heard everything. "You said something about someone leaving." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he forced a shrug. "Bad dream, not important." Emma knew that wasn't true. Caleb knew Emma knew, but neither spoke it out loud. Later, they explored the East Wing, one of the few areas they hadn't braved yet. The air felt heavier here, colder. The wallpaper peeled downward as if dragged by invisible hands. Dust gathered in corners where spiders had long since abandoned their webs. At the end of the hallway, they found a door partially cracked open. Emma pushed it lightly, and it swung wide with a drawn-out groan, revealing a cramped study. The smell hit them immediately. Old paper, mildew, and something sharper underneath. Something metallic. A single desk sat beneath a boarded window, papers stacked in uneven piles. Caleb brushed dust from the top sheet. "It's a diary," he said. Emma leaned in, reading the trembling handwriting. "The house asked for them again. I tried to refuse, but the walls, they kept whispering until I broke. Secrets taste like salt to it, and I am running out of salt." Emma looked at Caleb slowly. "Who wrote this?" He shook his head. He flipped to the next page. "The house doesn't want furniture, or clothes, or money. It doesn't care what you bring into it. It only cares what you hide. A chill trickled down Emma's spine. Caleb kept flipping. The entries became frantic, the pen digging into the pages so deeply some had torn through. It knows when I lie. It knows what I'm afraid to say out loud. If I keep feeding it, maybe it will let me sleep. Then the last entry. The house collects, the house consumes, the house keeps. Caleb whispered the final line again. The house keeps. Keeps what? Emma didn't answer. The study felt too tight, the air too dense, as if the house resented them reading its past meals. She turned to a second pile of journals, different handwriting, different eras. Some entries dated back decades, others only a few years. All of them carried the same tone of desperation. I told it the truth today. It wasn't enough. I hear her crying behind the walls. She confessed too much. The house is hungrier this month. Emma swallowed hard. Caleb, these people, something forced them to confess things. Caleb shifted the journals with a trembling hand. Maybe they were paranoid or trapped or the house demanded it. Their eyes met in the dim light. Neither said what both of them felt. Caleb had already given the house something while he slept. Emma had offered the lake, and the house had enjoyed those confessions. Hours passed, though outside the gray morning still clung stubbornly. They left the study, but the whispers clung to them like residue. The house collected. The house consumed. The house kept. And as they moved down the hallway, Emma caught a soft scrape behind the wall. A sound like pages turning, like someone or something reading the secrets they had just uncovered. Emma stopped walking. Did you hear that? Caleb paused. What? But Emma wasn't listening anymore. Her heart slowed, but a whisper in the wall made it race again. Tell me more. Her voice, but not her words. The house wanted more secrets, and it wasn't going to wait patiently.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. Never argue after midnight in this place. Midnight came without warning in Blackthorn Estate. No gentle shift, no gradual darkening. Just a sudden heaviness, as though the house exhaled all at once and replaced the air with something colder. Emma and Caleb sat on opposite sides of the bedroom, each pretending to read, neither absorbing a word. The weight of unspoken secrets from the previous chapter, his sleep murmurs, the journals, her lake memory, hung between them like dust suspended in stillness. Outside, the wind clawed at the shutters. Inside, the walls seemed to pulse with a slow, rhythmic tension. Finally, Caleb broke the silence. You're still upset about earlier. Emma didn't look up. Because you won't tell me the truth. There is no truth to tell, he snapped. The house shifted. So quietly that if they hadn't been so on edge, they might have missed it. The faint tightening of the floorboards beneath their feet. Emma closed her book. You talked about a locked door. You said, I know what I said. Caleb cut in. I don't know why I said it. It was just a dream." "It wasn't just a dream, Caleb." Her voice trembled, not from anger, but from recognition. The house had pried open her childhood memory. It was prying open his, too. Caleb rose from the bed. "You're doing it again, making something out of nothing." Emma stood too, matching his height, matching his intensity. "No, I'm trying to understand before this place eats us alive." The moment her voice rose above a whisper, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. The lights flickered once, then steadied, but the air did not warm. Caleb stared upward. "Did you feel—" Before he could finish, the bedroom door slammed shut behind them with a force that rattled the window glass. Emma gasped and stumbled backward. Caleb spun toward the door. The knob twisted violently. Once, twice, then went still. The shadows along the walls thickened, rising like spilled ink pulling itself upright. And the house listened. Caleb tried the door, pushing, then pulling. "It's jammed." "It wasn't jammed 2 seconds ago," Emma whispered. Old house. But they both knew better now. The vent above them exhaled a cold breath that circled the room, sweeping around Emma's ankles, then around Caleb's, circling like a predator, deciding which one to bite first. Emma stepped toward the center of the room. "Caleb, stop arguing." "I'm not arguing," he snapped. The floorboards answered him with a sharp crack like knuckles snapping in irritation. Emma's heart hammered. Caleb, I think it wants us to stop." He opened his mouth to reply, but a movement at the edge of his vision froze him. Emma turned at the same time. On the landing, outside the bedroom, visible through the small glass panel in the door, stood a figure. Still, tall, shadowed. Emma's breath hitched. "Is that?" But the figure wasn't facing them. It was facing the staircase, as if watching something replay, as if witnessing something that had already happened. And then, as both Emma and Caleb watched with paralyzed fascination, the figure jerked forward, arms thrown up, mouth wide open in a silent scream, mimicking a posture Emma recognized instantly. Her own. From minutes earlier, when she had raised her voice. Emma stumbled back. No, Caleb, that thing! Look at it!" "It's repeating you," Caleb whispered. The figure moved again, repeating the exact sharp gesture Caleb made earlier when he pointed accusingly during the argument. It was imitating their fight, replaying it, refining it. Like a performance rehearsed for an audience they couldn't see. Emma grabbed Caleb's arm. "We need to stop, right now. Don't say anything else." He nodded, pale, but the house wasn't finished. The cold circled again, tightening this time, like invisible hands wrapping around their legs. The shadows along the wall leaned forward. The mirror on the dresser fogged over, despite the cold. Across its surface, 3 slow words appeared, written as though by a fingertip from the other side. "At midnight, the house decides." Caleb whispered, "Decides what?" Emma didn't answer. The figure on the landing snapped its head toward the door. Both of them jumped back. Its jaw hung too low, stretching impossibly, as though the scream it held inside was too large to fit in a human mouth. A deep rumble traveled through the floorboards and up their legs. A warning, or a verdict. Then the figure dissolved abruptly into darkness, melting down the staircase like liquid shadow. The light steadied, the door unlocked with a soft click. Warmth crept slowly back into the room. It was over, for now. Caleb swallowed hard. Emma, what just... She shook her head, stepping back from the door as if it might bite. At midnight, the house decides who you really are. The words lingered in the air, heavy, inevitable. The chapter ended with the same dread looping through both their minds. At midnight, the house decides who you really are.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. When the house starts finishing your sentences. Morning broke over Blackthorn Estate in a pale, diluted yellow, light that seemed too weak to make it past the tall windows. Dust motes drifted lazily, suspended like tiny, drifting ghosts. Emma sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold mug of tea she hadn't sipped. She stared at the old tiled floor, at the hairline cracks twisting like veins. Caleb stepped quietly into the room. You didn't sleep. Emma didn't lift her gaze. Neither did you. He hesitated, then sat across from her. The silence stretched, thin and brittle. Emma finally spoke. Caleb, last night. I know what you were about to say, he interrupted softly. Her head snapped up. How? She whispered. Caleb blinked, surprised by his own confidence. I don't know. I just knew you were going to bring up the figure on the landing. Emma swallowed hard. Caleb, I wasn't. I was going to ask about your dream, the lake. Emma froze. The tea mug nearly slipped from her hands. Caleb, I wasn't thinking about that at all. He leaned back slowly, confusion shifting into discomfort. But I heard it. I heard you thinking it. Emma shook her head. Caleb, nobody hears someone thinking. That's not... You miss her, he said quietly. Emma stiffened. Miss who? Your mother, he whispered. I know you never talk about her, but this morning, you wanted to. You just didn't say it. Emma's breath caught. She had thought of her mother briefly while staring at the kitchen tiles, just a passing, painful flicker. She hadn't spoken it. Not out loud, not even in a whisper. Her heart thudded. Caleb, how could you know that? He stared at the floor. It's like your thoughts are loud, too loud, like someone else is telling me. The house breathed behind the walls, the familiar low exhale of wood shifting. Emma felt it rather than heard it. A quiet message, a presence reminding her it listens so it can speak. They tried to go about their morning, but Caleb kept finishing her sentences. When she reached for a broom, you want to check the pantry next. When she paused near the dining room, you're wondering why the wallpaper peels more here. When she opened her mouth to say she needed a moment alone, you want space, I know. Emma pulled her hand away. Stop doing that. Caleb frowned. I'm not doing anything. I'm just hearing you. She backed away slowly. Caleb, this isn't you. This is the house. He laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. But the laugh collapsed quickly. His face tightened. His eyes darkened. It's not ridiculous, he admitted. I hear it too. Something whispering behind the walls. It echoes you. Emma's pulse quickened. Echoes me how? Like, it repeats your thoughts. Then I repeat them. A chill spidered up her spine. Hours passed, though outside the light barely shifted, as though time itself hesitated near the estate. By afternoon, they ventured to the upstairs hallway to check the attic access. They hadn't entered the attic yet. It felt wrong somehow, a place the house didn't want touched. Emma stood beneath the attic hatch, staring up. We should check it. Whatever's happening, maybe it's coming from up there. Caleb finished sharply. Emma's breath hitched. Caleb, don't finish I didn't mean to, he said, his voice trembling slightly. The bravado was slipping, and Emma saw something else in his eyes. Fear, not of the house, of himself. But before she could reply, a sound drifted down from the attic. A voice. A man's voice, soft, measured, calm, a voice that sounded exactly like Caleb. Emma froze. "Did you hear?" Caleb's face drained of color. That wasn't me." The voice came again, now a perfect imitation of Caleb's soft, soothing tone he used when comforting her during her worst nights. "We shouldn't go up there, Em. It's not safe." Emma backed towards the staircase. Her heart raced so violently she felt dizzy. "That's not you," she whispered. Caleb shook his head. "No." Then the voice shifted, just slightly, too smooth, too rehearsed. "Come upstairs, Emma, please. I'll explain everything." Emma felt bile rise in her throat. "Caleb, it knows your voice." The attic voice answered instantly as if offended. "I know more than his voice." The attic rattled. Dust fell like gray snow. Caleb grabbed Emma's arm. "We're not staying here. Not by that door." They stumbled back down the hallway. The attic hatch thumped once, twice, as though something inside pressed gently, testing, as if deciding whether to come down. They reached the staircase when Emma felt the house listening, leaning inward, collecting the moment, preparing its next move. She whispered, trembling, "It listens so it can speak." Caleb echoed her in perfect unison, but his voice changed halfway through, shifting into the attic voice. "It listens so it can speak." Emma screamed and stumbled back. Caleb clamped his hands over his mouth, horrified. "Emma, that wasn't my voice, just Emma, I didn't say it like..." But the words were already spiraling through the walls, carried on whispers that didn't belong to either of them. It listens so it can speak. And now the house had two voices to play with.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. If you hear breathing in the walls, don't answer it. Evening settled early over Blackthorn Estate, folding the house into a dense, colorless quiet. The air grew heavier as the sun dipped behind the woods, as though the estate had been holding its breath all day and was finally allowed to exhale again. Emma stood in the upstairs hallway, staring at a section of peeling wallpaper. A faint bulge pressed outward beneath it, like the wall was swelling, inhaling. She stepped closer. The wallpaper expanded again, then deflated, slowly, rhythmically, exactly like lungs. Her pulse spiked. "Caleb, come here, now!" Caleb jogged up the stairs, still shaken from the attic mimicry hours earlier. "What is it?" Emma pointed at the wall. They watched it together. Inhale, exhale. A soft, dragging scrape beneath the plaster. Caleb swallowed. "Probably mice?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Mice don't." The wall expanded once more, and this time, something scraped directly behind it, a slow stroke like fingernails tracing her name. "Emma." She stumbled backward. The voice wasn't whispered, it wasn't spoken, it was breathed, exhaled through the wall like air passing through a mouth just inches from her ear. "Caleb," she whispered hoarsely. "It said..." "I heard it, but Emma, we can't jump to..." The wall inhaled again and whispered louder. "Emma." Emma felt the breath on her cheek this time. Cold, damp, wrong. She slapped her hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. The wall bulged outward, thin plaster stretching like skin around a skull. Caleb grabbed her wrist. "We're going downstairs." But they only made it a few steps before a second sound echoed down the hallway. A gasp, violent, jagged. Not from the wall this time, from the vent. Caleb froze. "Not that." Emma turned slowly. "Caleb, what's wrong?" He shook his head, trembling. "Not that voice, not that one. It can say anything at once except..." The vent trembled, metal rattling against the screws that held it in place.
A raw, hollow gasp drifted out, followed by a voice Emma didn't recognize, but Caleb did.
His knees buckled. No, not him. Emma grabbed his arm. Caleb, who is that? Then the voice returned, shaking, remorseful, broken. Caleb, son, I'm sorry. Emma felt every hair on her body stand upright. The voice was older, male, and familiar to Caleb in a way that ripped through him like a blade. He pressed a hand over his mouth, tears burning his eyes. Caleb, that's my father. Emma shook her head. Caleb, your father died, he whispered. 5 years ago. The vent breathed again. I never meant to leave you. I never meant to close that door. A sob escaped Caleb's throat. Emma took a step back from the vent, horror flooding her expression. Caleb, that's what you said in your sleep. He nodded shakily, because that's what he told me the night he died. He locked himself in the garage. He wouldn't let me in. He said he'd explain everything. The vent exhaled a ragged apology. I'm sorry, son. Caleb covered his ears. Stop, please stop. Emma grabbed Caleb's shoulders. That's not him. You know that, right? It's the house. It's using him. It's pulling your secrets out and twisting them. But Caleb couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, and the wall beside them inhaled again, deeply, until the plaster bowed outward as though something inside it were bracing against Emma's heartbeat. She felt that cold breath touch her again. She stumbled back, choking out, Caleb, we need to move, now. They made it down the stairs, but the breathing followed. Soft exhales from behind the railing, guttural inhales beneath the steps, a long dragging breath from inside the dining room walls. Everywhere they went, the house breathed with them. Emma clutched the banister, knuckles white. It's sinking with us. Caleb wiped his eyes. What? Emma stared at the wall where new bulges rose and fell in time with her chest. Your breath, my breath. It's matching our rhythm. It's learning our rhythm. The repetition echoed in her mind, as if whispered by the walls themselves. It breathes, because you breathe. Caleb backed away from the nearest vent. I can't listen to it. Emma, I can't hear him again. The house inhaled sharply, as though offended. Emma grabbed Caleb's hand. Come on. They hurried toward the kitchen, one of the few spaces that felt slightly less suffocating. But halfway down the hall, a low rasp drifted through the plaster. Not words this time, not names. The sound of two lungs inhaling together, a perfect simultaneous mimicry of their breaths. Caleb whispered, trembling, Emma, it's trying to become us. The house exhaled hard enough to blow dust off the floor. Emma's heart slammed against her chest. Don't answer it. Don't react. Just keep walking. But they hadn't taken 3 steps before the wall beside them swelled dramatically, filling with one enormous, shuddering breath, and a voice, not Caleb's father, not Emma's name, but something new, something hungry, breathed out a single word. Closer. Emma screamed. The lights flickered, the floorboards groaned, and the breathing behind the walls grew louder, faster, matching their panic with perfect precision. It breathes because you breathe, and now it wanted more.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. The floorboards remember every lie you told. Morning arrived reluctantly, a pale bluish wash that filtered through Blackthorn Estate's tall windows. The air smelled faintly of damp wood and something older, like pages in a book that had been closed too long. Emma moved through the foyer slowly, testing each step as if expecting the house to react. Because now she knew. It didn't just breathe. It didn't just listen. It remembered. Caleb appeared at the top of the staircase, looking exhausted. He hadn't slept after hearing his father's voice. His eyes were red.
His shoulders slumped. He looked smaller somehow, as if the house had taken space from him. "You okay?" Emma asked. He gave a half shrug. Define okay in this place. Emma stepped onto the second stair to meet him, and the stair creaked beneath her foot. But this time, the creak wasn't random. It was rhythmic, familiar. Two short creaks, a pause, one long groan. Emma froze. Her mind flicked back, quickly, instinctively, to a memory. A fight. 3 years ago, in their old apartment, when she accused him of hiding something on his phone. Her stomach twisted. "Caleb, does that sound like—" "Yes," he whispered. "It sounds like us." He stepped beside her, and the stair creaked again, perfectly matching the cadence of his voice back then. "I didn't lie to you." Not spoken, just echoed in the wood. Soundless words carried through shifting pressure and tone. Emma backed away. "No, no, no, no." She moved to the next step, and that one creaked too. This time a low, whining moan, pitched downward exactly like her voice when she had cried during the same argument. Caleb stumbled after her. "Emma, it's copying our fights." "No," she said, shaking her head. "It's replaying them." The repetition curled through her mind. The house remembers, even when you don't. They made their way down the stairs, but the floor of the foyer wasn't any better. The planks groaned in long stretches, slow, weighty sounds that matched the argument they had 2 years ago about Caleb's work schedule. It wasn't just moments of anger. It was tone, emotion, frequency. The boards recreated the vibrations of words long buried. "Stop," breathed Emma. "Stop walking." But Caleb took one more step, and the floor beneath his foot let out a sharp, snapping crack. Not random. Emma recognized it instantly. "Caleb, that was the night you told me you were stuck in traffic." He froze. His jaw tightened. "Emma, you weren't stuck in traffic." Her voice trembled. "You met someone for drinks." He closed his eyes. "I told you the truth later." "Yes, but you lied first," she said softly. Another creak, lower, deeper, almost disappointed. Emma swallowed hard. It remembers every lie. Caleb backed away from the floorboards as if they were snakes. "This house, what does it want with our past?" he whispered. Emma shook her head. "Not just the past. Our guilt, our mistakes, our secrets." She looked down at the floor. "It's eating them." They moved toward the dining room, but the hallway floor betrayed them again, this time with lighter creaks. Tiny chirps Emma recognized as the way Caleb's steps sounded the night he lied about forgetting their anniversary. And then, another step. A heavier creak. Her voice from 8 months ago echoed in her head. "I'm fine." A lie. She had told to hide a panic attack. Emma gasped. "It's mine too. It has mine." The house darkened slightly, as if it lowered invisible blinds. The temperature dipped. The repeated whisper threaded through the walls again. "The house remembers, even when you don't." Emma felt her pulse accelerate. "Caleb, we need to get off the wooden flooring, now." They rushed to the kitchen, the only room with stone tile. Their footsteps finally stopped echoing lies. Emma exhaled shakily. Okay, safe for now. Caleb leaned against the counter, rubbing his face. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Emma approached him cautiously. Caleb, what did you mean earlier when the house played that creak from college? He shook his head. I don't want to talk about it. She looked toward the doorway. Darkness pooled there, listening. Caleb, she whispered urgently, if you don't tell me, the house will. He stiffened. And then, from the foyer, the floorboards groaned again. This time louder, deeper. A slow, heavy series of cracks, building with tension, like the house preparing to reveal something enormous. Emma grabbed Caleb's hand. Don't let it say it first. The floorboards groaned louder. The house remembers, even when you don't. And then, a voice, beneath the floorboards, whispered Caleb's betrayal in perfect detail. Emma's knees buckled. Caleb broke. And the house listened with glee.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. When a room rearranges itself to trap you. The house grew strangely quiet after the floorboards revealed Caleb's secrets. Not peaceful, never peaceful. Just quiet in the way a predator goes still before it pounces. Emma and Caleb moved cautiously through the first floor. The air felt thick and heavy, almost syrupy, making each breath slow and weighted. Dust clung to their skin as if the house didn't want to let even their sweat escape. Emma paused near the foyer. Caleb, where's the door? He frowned. What do you mean? It's right. But it wasn't. The front door, the one they had walked through on their first day, was simply gone. Not boarded up, not hidden behind furniture. Gone. A blank wall of faded wallpaper in its place. Caleb swore under his breath. No, it can't. Emma stepped closer, touching the wallpaper. It was warm, pulsing faintly beneath her fingertips. She snatched her hand back. Caleb, the house is moving. A faint groan rolled through the structure, deep in the beams, the floors, the old bones of the estate. A shifting sigh, as though the entire building stretched itself in satisfaction. Then another hallway appeared where none had been minutes earlier. Long, narrow, slanting slightly, almost imperceptibly, like a funhouse corridor designed to make you lose balance. Caleb shook his head. Absolutely not. We're not going down there. But Emma was already backing into it, not because she wanted to, but because the floor behind her nudged her feet forward with a subtle tilt. Caleb, I'm slipping. He lunged for her, but the floor shifted faster. Emma tumbled backward into the new hall. The doorway snapped shut behind her like a mouth closing. Emma's maze. Darkness swallowed Emma for a moment, then the hall flickered to life with a sickly yellowish glow. She scrambled to her feet. Caleb! Her voice echoed strangely, bouncing off walls that seemed too close, too soft. No response. She forced herself to breathe. Slow, steady. The hall stretched before her, longer now, its end lost in shadow. Wallpaper peeled downward in curled strips as though melting. The air smelled faintly of lake water, cold, murky, metallic. Her throat tightened. The lake, her fear, the house was using it. She took a step forward. The floor dipped, then rose again, guiding her like a moving walkway. Stop, she whispered. Just stop! But the hall obeyed the house, not her. As she moved deeper, doors appeared on both sides. Thin doors that looked as if they had been carved from rotting driftwood. Each one bore faint scratches at eye level, as if countless hands had clawed to get out. Emma tried the first handle. Locked. The second. Locked. The third opened on its own. Inside was a small room. The walls shimmered like water, and in the center of the floor was a pair of wet footprints, child-sized, leading toward her. Emma backed away quickly, slamming the door shut. The hall groaned again, lengthening. The house knows the shape of your fear, the walls seemed to whisper. She whispered back, trembling, I know you do. Caleb's room. Caleb slammed his shoulder against the wall where the hallway had swallowed Emma. Emma, Emma, answer me! Only silence. Then a door behind him creaked open. He whirled around. A room he hadn't noticed before, small, square, dimly lit by a single flickering lamp. His blood ran cold. He knew that smell. He hadn't smelled it since he was 15. No, not this, not here. The room was identical to his father's study. The peeling green wallpaper, the crooked lamp, the chair with the ripped leather arm. Caleb stepped inside, unable to stop himself. The door slammed shut behind him. Smoke curled through the air, though there was no cigarette. His chest tightened with old anxiety, old shame, old fear. A voice drifted from the corner. You only lie because you're weak. He froze. He knew that sentence. He had heard it 1,000 times in his childhood. But no one was in the room. Just the chair and the smell of his father's brand of cigarettes. Caleb backed against the wall. You're not real. You're not him. The shadow on the floor twitched, lengthened, stretched toward him. His father's voice came again, low and seething. You'll always be weak. Caleb covered his ears. Stop! Stop! But the house didn't stop. It had learned his shape, his guilt, his fear. The house knows the shape of your fear, the room whispered, mirroring Emma's corridor. Caleb sank to his knees. It knew him too well. Shifting walls. Meanwhile, Emma reached the end of her impossible hallway, breath ragged, heart pounding. A final door appeared ahead, plain, wooden, harmless looking. She pushed it open and stepped directly into Caleb's nightmare. The cigarette smell hit her instantly. She saw Caleb curled on the floor, arms over his head, trembling. Caleb, she rushed to him. He lifted his face, eyes red, voice shaking. Emma, it showed me everything. She pulled him close. We have to get out, now. The walls around them shuddered, shifted, tightened. The doorway behind them vanished. The floor beneath them vibrated in a slow, deliberate rhythm, almost like a giant heartbeat. She whispered, Caleb, it's closing in. A final whisper rippled through the walls, soft, triumphant. The house knows the shape of your fear, and the room began to shrink.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 9. The house doesn't want you dead, just devoted. The moment Emma and Caleb escaped the shrinking room, the entire house seemed to sigh, displeased, inconvenienced, as though they had slipped from a grasp it assumed would hold. They stumbled into a hallway that wasn't the hallway they had come from. It wasn't any hallway they recognized. The wallpaper was smooth here, new, almost pristine, as if freshly installed. The air smelled faintly of old roses and warm dust, a strange combination that made Emma's skin prickle. Caleb leaned against the wall, still shaking from what the house had shown him. It's playing with us. She shook her head slowly. No, that was chapter 8. Now it's testing something else. He frowned. Testing what? She didn't answer. But she knew. The house wasn't trying to kill them. It had never tried to kill them. Doors slammed, lights flickered, voices whispered, rooms swallowed them whole. But death was never the goal. The house wanted something else. A soft chime echoed through the hall. Not a bell, not metal, more like glass vibrating underwater. Then Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. Her breath caught. Caleb stepped forward quickly. Try calling someone. Anyone. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the screen. The phone flickered. The time blinked between numbers. 2:14, 9:52, 3:01, 12 o'clock, cycling impossibly fast. Caleb, the clock. He looked down at his phone. It showed 7:18 p.m., then 2:18 p.m., then 11:18 a.m., always 18 a.m., as if stuck on the minute but not on reality. Emma tried dialing her sister. The call connected. Her heart leapt. Hello, Tess! Tess, can you hear me? Static flooded the speaker. Then a voice whispered through the distortion, her own voice. Devotion, Emma, not escape. Emma dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor, screen spiderwebbing. Caleb stared at her. What did it say? She shook her head. Not it, me, my voice. Caleb knelt, picking up the phone. His hand trembled. Emma, I think time is wrong here. I think time doesn't work inside this house. Her throat tightened. It's cutting us off. No, Caleb whispered. It's keeping us. Hours passed, though outside the night stayed exactly the same. No movement of light, no shift of sky, just an eternal dusk, as if the world beyond the windows didn't exist or had stopped caring. Emma wandered into a parlor room with peeling floral wallpaper. The room felt oddly warm, safe even, a place that hummed with a strange comfort she didn't trust. On the far wall hung a tall mirror, one she hadn't noticed before. In its reflection, she didn't look frightened. She didn't look exhausted. She looked peaceful. Her hair lay neatly against her shoulders. Her eyes were soft, her expression serene, like she belonged here. She stared, and the reflection smiled. Emma staggered back. No! The reflection raised a hand, slow, tender, placing it against the mirror, inviting, wanting. And behind it, in the reflections world, the walls weren't rotting. They were clean, white, beautiful, a home cared for by gentle hands. Emma whispered, "That's not me!" But something in her chest fluttered, a dangerous softness, a thought she didn't allow herself to complete. Life could be easier if she stopped fighting. She turned away quickly, but the mirror whispered her name. Emma, stay. Her heart raced. The whisper again. Stay, stay, stay. It grew louder with each repetition, overlapping, echoing off the walls. She clamped her hands over her ears. Caleb rushed into the room. Emma, what are you doing? She gasped. Caleb, I think it wants me. It wants both of us, just for different reasons. Emma shook her head, raving breath. The house doesn't want us dead. No, he whispered, dread settling in his voice. It wants us obedient. The mirror behind them echoed softly. Devotion, not escape. They left the parlor together, but the house guided their steps. Down one hall, up another, through a door that hadn't existed the day before. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. Warmer, softer, more comforting. Caleb stopped suddenly. Emma, wait. She turned. He stared at a wall that seemed to breathe faintly, except it didn't bulge like before. It inhaled in a gentler rhythm, as though trying not to frighten them. Emma stepped closer. Why is it softer? Caleb whispered, "I think this is the heart of the house." A soft lullaby-like hum pulsed through the plaster, vibrating through their bones. Soothing, gentle, seductive. Emma's eyelids grew heavy. Caleb shook her shoulders. "No, don't listen!" But Emma's voice drifted into the quiet. "I saw myself in the mirror, Caleb." Her voice was slow, dreamlike. "I wasn't scared. I wasn't tired. I was whole. Like I belonged here." Caleb's grip tightened. "Emma, that's not real." Her lips parted. "But what if it could be?" The house hummed again, like approval. The repeating phrase rose around them in layers of sound. "Devotion, not escape." Caleb pulled her back, heart pounding. "Emma, please, stay with me. Fight it." She blinked rapidly, as though waking from a dream. Then the house changed. The lights flickered. The walls rumbled slowly, like a giant shifting in its sleep. A low, patient whisper drifted from every direction at once. "Stay. Forever." Emma clutched Caleb's hand, breath trembling. The house didn't want to kill them. It wanted them loyal, committed, devoted. And devotion, the house made clear, was a promise you never walked away from.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. Once the house knows your name, it says it back. Night returned to Blackthorn Estate like a closing fist. There was no sunset, only the sudden drop of darkness, a thick blanket of shadow that clung to the windows and smothered every corner of the house. Emma and Caleb stood at the center of the foyer, hands still locked together, breath shallow. Emma whispered, "It's darker tonight." Caleb nodded, "Because it's ready." Ready for what? Neither dared to say. The house hummed softly, like a creature stretching after a long sleep. The floorboards sighed. The wallpaper rippled. The vents exhaled warm, stale air that smelled faintly of earth and damp stone. Emma felt a vibration beneath her feet, so subtle she wasn't sure if she imagined it. Then she heard it. Her name. Emma. Soft, close, spoken with a slow, deliberate tenderness that made her skin crawl. She looked at Caleb. "Did you?" He shook his head. "No, that wasn't me." The house whispered again. "Emma." This time from somewhere above them. The ceiling, where no voice should ever come from. Caleb stiffened. "It said your name." Emma grabbed his arm. "We have to go, now, before it—" A second voice interrupted her. This time, it spoke Caleb's name. "Caleb," whispered from the kitchen drain. The metal trembled. The gurgle of water echoed under the whisper like a throat swallowing. Caleb stumbled back. No, this is too much. We're leaving." Emma nodded. "We find the door, even if it moved, even if it's hidden." But as they turned toward the hallway, the house spoke again. Not a whisper this time, a chorus. Their names echoed from every room, every vent, every pipe. Emma, Caleb, Emma, Caleb. Their names layered, distorted, overlapping like 100 mouths speaking through the walls. Emma grabbed Caleb's hand and pulled him down the hallway. "Run!" The escape attempt. The house shifted around them, rearranging itself in subtle, disorientating ways. A hallway that should have led to the dining room curved left instead, opening into a narrow passageway with low ceilings and peeling wallpaper. Caleb tried to open a side door. It was locked. Emma tried another, also locked. Their breathing grew louder, mixing with the chorus drifting from the walls. Emma, Caleb. Her name hissed from the floorboards beneath her feet.
His name echoed from the window glass like a breath fogging its surface. They reached what should have been the foyer. Instead, they found themselves staring at the entrance to the basement. The door was open, wide, inviting, and from the darkness below, a single voice rose. Emma's voice. Her own voice. "Please, don't leave me." Emma froze. "That's me." Caleb shook his head. "It's not you, it's the house." But she was staring down the stairs, wide-eyed, trembling. The voice was perfect, raw, crying, begging. Exactly how she sounded the night her mother died. The night she called for help and no one came. The house had taken that moment, that pain, and was using it. "Emma," the basement voice pleaded, "come back. Please, don't leave me alone." Emma choked. "I can't abandon her. I can't abandon." Caleb pulled her back sharply. "Emma, that's not you." The voice shifted instantly, harder, more commanding. "Emma, come down." The stairs creaked as though something ascended, one slow step at a time. Caleb dragged her away. "We're not going down there. We're getting out." They turned, and the foyer door was back. The real front door, just standing there, closed, but unmistakable. Caleb sprinted toward it. "Emma, this is it. This is our chance." Emma ran after him, hope flickering in her chest. But before they reached it, they heard a new voice. Her sister's voice. "Emma, are you there? Please don't leave me here." Emma choked. "Tess?" Her mother's voice followed, then her father's, then her childhood doctor, her friends, old co-workers, every voice she had ever known, every voice she had ever loved. They overlapped in a terrible, pleading choir. "Stay with us. Don't go. Please don't leave us." The house moaned with the effort, its structure trembling as though its walls strained to hold so many borrowed voices. Caleb reached for the doorknob, and the house spoke again in a single, impossibly unified voice. "Caleb." He froze. The doorknob turned to ice in his hand. He yanked his palm back with a cry. Emma screamed, "Run! Just run!" He staggered backward, and the door dissolved into wallpaper, gone, as if it had never existed at all. The house had shown the exit, only to take it away, to hurt them, to test their devotion. Emma grabbed Caleb's shirt. "We have to keep moving. Don't let it trap us here." But the lights flickered violently, the floor trembled, the walls rippled like something inside them was struggling to break free. A final whisper, slow and triumphant, crawled from the ceiling down the walls. "You are what the house listens through now." Emma's heart stopped. Caleb staggered backward. The whisper grew louder. "You are what the house listens through now." The ceiling bulged downward, the walls expanded like lungs, the vents exhaled hot air that tasted like dirt and old secrets. Their names filled the air one last time. Emma, Caleb. Emma, Caleb. Stay, stay, stay. You are what the house listens through now. The house had chosen them, claimed them, and now it spoke through them.
In the end, Emma and Caleb learned the truth too late. The house never wanted their happiness, only their honesty. Every fear they hid, every doubt they swallowed, every secret they buried became the mortar binding them to Blackthorn Estate. Because a house like this doesn't hunger for blood.
It hungers for the pieces of you that you hope no one ever hears. And once you give it those pieces, you don't leave. You just become another voice in its walls. So if you ever feel your home listening, if you ever sense the walls leaning closer, don't whisper, don't confess, and above all, don't let it learn your name. If you want more stories like this, more nights you'll regret listening to with the lights off, then subscribe now before something in your own house starts paying attention.